Addicts suffer slowly, so slowly that they may not even notice, especially if the addiction is euphoric. But eventually the high stops, obstacles crop up, and that suffering starts to become noticeable.
Oh, damn, Jim.
Reality and consequences sink in. The narrative flows this way in Requiem for a Dream, highlighting the success of drugs and the slow decay of delusions.
And you should see my Harry on television. We're giving the prizes away. I just wanted to be on the show.
Until everything drops. Requiem for a Dream does a lot of things well, but the standout is the editing and the music. The more I edit, the more I realize the creative process isn't broken up into pieces. The soundtrack isn't just slapped over the edit, and the edit can't exist without the music. It all rises together, which is why I want to see what that looks like. When editing the music, it's helpful to break down what you can edit to. The idea of the climactic scene is to cross-cut between four characters and speed up as their tragedies worsen. First, let's categorize the instrumentation. The percussion sets a pretty steady pulse, establishing the rhythm of the scene. When the strings enter, the percussion doesn't come back until the end of the scene. Then there are the two violins, the foreground, creating an anxious melody. Our focus goes right here, which is important. And underneath are the viola and the cello, droning in the background, sometimes against the melody, sometimes supporting it. Usually it's best to cut to foreground music. It stands out, and it's easy to associate the change in images with the music, looking something like this. Specifically, I'm cutting to the start of every loop. Of course, the film does this. And any shift in music. But what about everything in between? Personally, I think you can cut anywhere as long as you hit the loop origins, which is why an edit can be as long as the scene needs it to be. But luckily the background is consistent, which allows for clearer edits within the loop origins. There are a few subtle examples early on, cutting on the viola and the cello. This idea of cross-cutting the music is used in music videos, editing images to noticeable punches in a song. Of course, there are techniques within an edit that help sell the sequence as a whole, the first being diegetic sound. The neat thing about this scene is dialogue from one location overlaps the others. Not only does this create a flow, but when you're cutting this rapidly, it keeps the scene from being confusing, or at least not stopping to listen to every piece of dialogue in one shot. And occasionally the sound matches the tempo of the music, which is really cool. Unless they want to be jarring. For instance, the sound of the surgical saw can only be heard during Harry's scene. Another way to edit is synchronizing music to action. The most obvious example is... it happens every time. But a subtler method is to match movement, like when Sarah beats her head. Or when a pen swipes across the paper. The interesting thing about that pen, too, is the sound it makes matches the staccato sound of the instruments. And that happens a couple of times. The opening percussion sounds a bit like a knock. And sure enough. And remember when I said the percussion doesn't come back until later? Well, how about when a door is bursting open? Given the nature of editing, it's hard to say if all of this was planned from the get-go. I'll be the first to admit that accidents end up working all the time. But some things are absolutely planned, like match cuts. All four of these scenes have flashlights in them, and twice the shots are back-to-back. That's not an accident, and good planning can't be faked. To synchronize music to action takes preparation and forethought in both film and music videos. Narrative can't be separated from the ways we express that narrative. You can tell a story about 4 people reaching their lowest low as a result of addiction in a variety of ways. But whichever way you choose is the narrative. When I think of Requiem for a Dream, I think of the editing and the music, so entwined with the story that every note is as haunting as the trauma.